You ever notice we can't find the multi-tool we're looking for? I mean, is it this? Is it this? The internet has absolutely no idea what this term means. And frankly, even I struggle to kind of quantify them and put them in proper organization. But I've done exactly that as a way to create some form of buyer's guide to make it a little bit easier for you to shop for multi-tools online. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, full disclosure here, this is not what I had in mind when I started doing this organization. The purpose was mostly for myself. When I went to search for things on Amazon, it was really frustrating. They like to send us all of this crap to go along with the tools that I'm actually looking for. So what did I do? I decided to make a list, an organized list, one where I could take a look at all of the different options in a given size range and see them in order from the smallest and thinnest Victorinox at 58 millimeters all the way up to the largest and widest at 130, aka the Boatsman. And this has never been done. Like, nobody's doing this. And so I figured I'll do it. And then my list is your list. Take a look. And I didn't want to just have one type or one brand. I wanted to have all of them in one place so I could make an appropriate comparison between them, right? And I think if you were going to buy a tool like this, wouldn't you want to know what else is available? Most people don't even know there's a brand called Schweizer that is made in Switzerland and is a very similar style of pocket knife to the Swiss Army knife. And they maybe don't know that Schrade makes this old-timer variant with a bunch of different combinations. So what did I do? I put them all in a nice list, by brand, by size. So use this. I hope it helps you. I really, really do. It's already helping me because by doing this search, I found a number of models that I couldn't even find on Victorinox's own website, such as the serrated Spartan or the Executive, which it seems like they may have discontinued. So this was really useful to me, and I hope it will be useful to you. Now, I've also done exactly the same thing with the plier-based multi-tools. So we are pretty familiar with what these look like. And for the longest time, they were just called Leathermans, really, because they were the only ones around. Tim Leatherman in the late 80s invented the pocket survival tool, and ever since, we've known them in this form. But when you search on Amazon, you get a whole bunch of weird things that are called quote-unquote multi-tools. And I figured, wouldn't it be nice to once again have all the brands in one place by size? You know, it's nice. So I went ahead and did that as well. So this is a list that I hope you will use, not necessarily to purchase from, but to kind of give you a way to compare them, okay? I highly recommend using it for that purpose. When it comes to purchasing multi-tools, especially the plier-based ones, every brand has places that do a better job or give you a better deal. And so the next section here, I want to talk specifically about where the best places are to go for each brand. Whoops, I forgot about something. Before you go wading through all of these lists, let me give you two useful tools that may help narrow the field a little bit. Number one, ask yourself this question: how are you going to carry it? It doesn't matter if the Leatherman Surge has all the tools you want. It's almost 13 ounces. If you're not carrying it on a belt holster, you're probably not carrying it at all, or you're putting it in a bag. And generally that's very important to know how you're carrying something. And almost everything that involves around EDC, you're gonna wanna know how you're carrying it and think that through. So is it a keychain tool? Is it a light tool you can put inside some form of organizer? Or are you going to replace, you know, potentially even a folding knife with it? These are things you definitely want to answer, and that will help a lot in determining which tool you want. And be honest, there's really not that many options when you start shrinking it down that far. Now, the second thing you may want to consider doing is creating a priority list of implements, of functions that you're looking for. And in my head, I start with the big five, and that is plier, scissor, blade, file, and saw. Now, you might be surprised to hear me not say screwdriver, and that is because the way different companies treat the inclusion of screwdrivers is quite different. For instance, Victorinox has some coming out the back, which are not ideal. Leatherman has really compromised short drivers in a lot of cases. And very few companies, for instance, with screwdrivers, make them into primary tools like the Gerber center drive. If it's important to you, put it on the list, but at least have those five, because most of the tools that you're going to see are going to be built around the long implements, and that is how they're usually constructed from the sense of geometry. And from there, you'll have a very, very small list that should hopefully tell you exactly what you should be purchasing. All right, so since we're on the subject of plier-based multi-tools, let's start with Leatherman, shall we? There is one place that I find to have the best deals on Leathermans, and it's consistent. Like, doesn't matter what time of the year, I can get a good deal on any Leatherman that I'm looking for, and that is actually on eBay. I know some of you hearing this are like, whoa, that's, I've heard things about eBay, but I really recommend checking it out. There's so many of these listings have buyer protections. Many of the people who are posting tools on there have been doing it for a very long time, and they have lots of reviews. And if you're using PayPal, there really isn't anything to worry about, really. And it's worth it. For instance, the Leatherman Free P2, the base price on that thing is $130, right? You can buy a brand new one on eBay for $80. Yeah. And other multi-tools like that, on average, they're like $20 less than you will find almost anywhere else. So it is certainly worth the effort. And if you are considering it and maybe even want to go lower, you can get used models for even less and still find some really, really high quality pieces that are going to last a very, very long time. So that would be my number one choice if I was looking to buy a Leatherman myself. All right, the second place you want to look if you're trying to buy a Leatherman, and this is going to be the only time that you're going to hear me say this, is actually on the company's website itself. Surprisingly, you will actually get decent deals on Leatherman, whether it's a closeout sale or just specific models that you really can't find any cheaper anywhere else. A great example of this is the Supertool 300M, which comes with both a bit extender worth $30 and a bit kit worth around $10 to $12. So when you factor all of that in, it's incredibly efficient to buy this tool directly from Leatherman, and it's the only place you can. The other thing that you will find is this is the only place on the whole internet that you will find all of the accessories available for their multi-tools, whether it's the bit kits, replacement parts, the wireless, the replaceable cutters, all of those things. They're going to be on Leatherman's website, and it's very efficient to buy them with your tools, so you don't have to pay additional shipping. They're lower in price than you will find almost anywhere. So I highly recommend doing that. And the third thing about Leatherman's website is if you are a military, first responder, police officer, firefighter, or teacher, you can get 40% off a couple of times during the year with a coupon code. And you can use that for 3 items on each purchase. It is a huge discount. And if you have the ability to do that, it's by far the best way you can buy a Leatherman. All right, as far as the third best place, surprisingly, it's one store I have found to consistently have good deals on Leatherman, and it is related to the fact that they have certain perks for their members, and that is REI. So I've made a whole video about this where you can use the one-time coupon once a year on Leatherman tools using the dividends to make it even cheaper. And I'll put a link to that video down in the description. But I highly recommend checking out their online website. And if you are near one of their physical stores, it's a great way to actually get a Leatherman as long as you're only buying one Leatherman per year. So with that, that's my top 3. All right, let's move on to Victorinox. So this one is a little bit different. Where you would never want to buy a Leatherman on Amazon, it's completely the opposite case when it comes to Victorinox pocket knives or non-plier based multi-tools. And even their plier based ones have decent prices on Amazon. And that is my preferred place to look initially. I find that when it comes to new tools, because of the way their system works and how the price drops when they haven't sold that many, you can sometimes get them for far less than even eBay, unless you're buying used, which brings us to the second best place, eBay. And I highly recommend considering purchasing a used. And I know that might be weird, but the truth is Victorinox has more longevity than pretty much any other company out there. And when you find, after purchasing tools that are from the 70s and they're still perfectly fine and work great and there's no issues, you're like, this is crazy. This is a 50-year-old or 60-year-old tool. 50, yeah, you get my point. But it still works great. So definitely consider checking out eBay as your second option. And then the third option here for finding Victorinox, Swiss Army knives and so on, is actually using a Google shopping search. So I find that what they will do is they will help you go through the sea of websites that sell pocket knives and help you find the best deal. Occasionally, those websites will have closeouts because they're either closing their store or whatever it is. Just make sure you're being careful with that. And just like anything else on the internet, make sure that where you're purchasing from is reputable. And if you can, always use PayPal because it creates a barrier between your credit card and the individual that you're purchasing from. So it's a nice little thing to do that will give you a little bit of peace of mind. All right, let's move on to Gerber. So Gerber is really weird because it's all over the place. A lot of times I find that the best place to buy a Gerber is from one of the knife distributors like Knife Center or Blade HQ or something along those lines. Occasionally I'll get lucky using a Google shopping search. On Amazon, you almost never find a good deal. So I would skip that entirely and stick to either a Google search through shopping or, once again, eBay. eBay is your friend. There's tons of Gerber multi-tools on there, both new and used. However, if you want the most current model, like the Dual Force, you may have to go to those individual websites or directly to Gerber's website itself. You're gonna pay a premium for it, just keep that in mind. But if you're willing to wait, check eBay, check the Google shopping search, and start with that. All right, the fourth major company we'll talk about is SOG. So SOG is all over the place. I'll be quite honest. I have not found a singular place where I can find all of the SOG models, even their own website. No joke. And I definitely don't recommend buying directly from their website because the prices are really high, base price. And you're going to have to just, if you do search their website, make sure you only buy on their sales and also keeping an eye on their accessory section. A lot of their add-ins that go inside their multi-tools fit in other brands as well, like Leatherman. They have the same pivot size, believe it or not. So with a little bit of modding, you can actually make those work inside a number of Leatherman tools. Just something that you might want to be made aware of. I think I've only ever made a purchase from their website one time, and it's because something was on clearance. And that's the only time that I've been able to find something from SOG. Otherwise, you're basically at a crapshoot. I have not found a single place. eBay is usually my go-to to kind of get started with companies that I'm having trouble with, and then I usually work backwards from there. All right, and so the last section is about those budget, off-brand multi-tools that maybe aren't so easy to find. There's only one good place to do that, and that is Amazon. I don't recommend slugging through all of the pages relating to multi-tools like I have done. I've done my best to put all the multi-tools I think are worth looking at the very least in the plier-based list that is going to be in the description. There are certainly a lot more, okay? But in many cases, they're repeats or rebrands or something along those lines. I tried to only showcase the ones that were at their lowest price and were not, you know, basically the same thing as someone else was making. There are a couple brands actually making their own products. The only one that the two that I have seen on Amazon are Nextool, which I have all of those linked, as well as Roxxon. So those are all linked down in that list. And so take a look at that. But generally speaking, that's kind of where you want to go for those tools. And believe it or not, they're actually cheaper than they are from websites like AliExpress. Surprising, but true. So I hope this was helpful to get you started. And maybe if you've already begun this process, maybe it'll take some of the frustration out of it by helping you get to the right place to find the tool you're looking for. I will be continuing this series that will hopefully help people make decisions, such as picking the right 4-layer Victorinox, right? I will be talking about the difference between a EDC style multi-tool and a keychain multi-tool, for instance, and when you want to carry them and so on. So we'll be adding to this series, but this is a good starting point that I hope will help you find the tool that is going to best serve you and maybe prevent you from having to return it and go through any frustration, or maybe never carry one at all. So thanks for your time. I really do appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.